Welcome back, everybody, to the Even Your Dynasty show.
We just got breaking news in.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Even Your Dynasty show. Hope you enjoyed that. That was courtesy of Caveman, who is on assignment tonight.
First it was you and now it was him, but hey, it's good to come on after a win finally. I feel like it's been a few weeks. Can be a little bit more positive tonight.
Yeah, you know, it's a little easier to sit here, be happy, be positive when they just took 3 out of 4 against, I mean, either with like 13-12 on the season now, but the Brewers have been a good team for years. And I didn't see anything in this week that tells me they're not a good team. They defensively looked a little Giants-esque at times, but overall they got some nice players. So
yeah, honestly, they're kind of a scrappier, like poor man's version of the brand of baseball the Giants are kind of playing right now. They're kind of just putting the ball in play and putting a little bit of pressure on the opposing team's defense and stealing some bags, playing some decent defense for the most part, and, you know, throwing out a pretty decent pitching staff as well. So I think the Brewers by the end of the season will kind of be in the thick of things in the Central, or even be competing for a wild card in some capacity. Yeah.
I know you're kind of hoping they fall out early because you want to see them. You want to see the Giants go get their, go get your boy. I should say Willie's boy, Freddie Peralta.
Yep.
But, yeah. But yeah, Giants won today. What was it? Final was 6-5. Took 3 of 4. I kind of felt like they stole the series in a way. Felt like they were staring down a split. Kind of a couple of the games could have really easily gone the other way, and they grinded them out. But wins are wins. They haven't always been pretty this season, but they are 17-9. For those wondering, they are a half game ahead of the Dodgers. So we'll just enjoy that for a day, and only a half game behind the Padres in the division. So, I mean, who really had the Giants a half game out of the division 26 games into the season? Because I didn't. That's for sure. So we'll just enjoy that. And they haven't really even played their best ball, I think, at this point. I think it's pretty clear that the offense really hasn't gotten going. I mean, 2/3 of their lineup on a daily basis is just kind of, you know, limping around 200 or 100 if you're LaMonte Wade Jr. And about 3/5 of their rotation just isn't really throwing the ball well. I mean, Roop today didn't throw it great. He got 0 help from his defense behind him, but I felt like he could have maybe grinded out 5 innings of like 2 or 3 run ball if the defense was a little better, but you know, he got no help there. So, I mean, we'll see, but the record is what the record is, and we'll just take it.
Yeah, I honestly think the Giants are probably about right where they should be, given what's going on. I think they found ways to scrap out wins. And I think, you know, with the lineup, you're looking at guys like Fitz and Yaz right now who are probably overachieving for what you should expect over the course of the season. But it's kind of making up for, you know, Elliot Ramos, Willy Adames, even Matt Chapman at times, all, you know, coming in kind of cold to start the season. And I mean, I really don't expect Ramos and Adames to be hitting for, you know, 500 to 600 OPS all season with a sub 200 batting average. And Willie's only shown the 1 homer and a very high strikeout rate. So I don't expect to see that all season. And then on the pitching side of things, I think that it's been a combination of they have struck out guys at a lot higher rate this year, but they've also walked guys at an extremely high rate, especially as of the last 2.5 weeks or so. They're currently 7th in the major leagues in walks, but they're also 7th in strikeouts. So at some point, you need to see those walk numbers come down. But I also think our defense is kind of making it a little bit harder on the starting pitchers than it needs to be. Just, they'll make the occasional wow play from, Adames or Chapman, but then, the next inning you see David VR have his foot pulled off the bag on a throw that really wasn't that far off the bag, or you'll see LaMonte Wade, making a poor throw on a swinging bunt down the first base line. So,
or just whiffing one from Chapman that hits him in the chest.
And I honestly, with Wade, I can't even count how many times I've seen him lay out for a ball and it get by him. Yeah. I don't think he's come up with one of those balls all year, to be honest with you. So I do think they are right where they should be, because I think some of these things will kind of even out a little bit. I think, the Giants are scrapping out some games that maybe they shouldn't have won, but then they're losing some games that maybe they shouldn't have lost. I think, like we said, the middle of the order needs to do better, but then I think, some of these other role players might kind of level out a little bit as the season goes on.
Yeah, no, I agree. They, somebody messaged me on X today and was like, "How is this team 17-9? I feel like they should be 9-17 with just how they've had to go about winning some games and some of the stuff going on with, like, especially the offense." And I go, my best answer is Jung-Hoo Lee's a star. Wilmer Flores has been clutch, and the bullpen's been shortening games. Like, that's the best answer I can come up with, because it feels like, and that's not to discredit guys like Yaz and Fitz and them that are having good series, but I mean, Wilmer's he leads the majors in RBIs. Lee's been a superstar basically through 27 games. And I mean, when you can only get 5 innings out of your starters, but then the bullpens are, shutting teams down consistently. I mean, they had the hiccup with Walker a couple nights ago in LA, and then they had the hiccup again almost with Walker yesterday, and Doval, kind of bailed him out. And then obviously Trevino imploded, which somebody asked about Trevino early on. I think Ziggy did. So we'll look at that in a second. But on the whole, I think the bullpen has like the 3rd best ERA in baseball, even with a couple of these games where they've just fallen apart. So it's a recipe to win. Like, I mean, Ricky and I, especially, time and time again in the offseason, said if the starting rotation could just get you 5 innings plus consistently, this bullpen could be really good. And they showed flashes of that in the last couple of years, but they just got burnt out early in the year. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. Oh my God. Lee is looking like Timu Ichiro.
I don't know. Timu is pretty bad. That's kind of an insult.
Yeah, it's kind of an insult, man. No, but Lee looks awesome. Is he going to hit 340 on the season? Probably not. I mean, I hope he does. I think every Giants fan does, but I wouldn't hold my breath on that one. But I do think he could be like a 310 hitter or so. So I'd probably compete for the batting title now in today's game.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy to, see him hitting around 3 to 310 this year. I don't think that's crazy at all. Yeah. But to expect him to hit 340 in today's game would be a little crazy. Not saying he can't do it, but and then as far as winning the batting title in the National League, I mean, that's totally within reach.
Yeah, you know what, Wesley? I might have severely set my bar like just way too low for Jung-Hoo Lee on doubles. Before the year, I said, give me 40 doubles out of the guy. I don't care about the home runs. Don't really care about the triples. Figure a couple of those will come here and there. I say, get me 40 doubles, and he might hit like 50 to 60. Like, it's insane how fast this guy's, or the pace that this guy's hitting doubles right now. And you just love to see it. So, let's jump up. Ziggy asks, how do you feel about Trevino? He gave up 5 runs his last outing, and in my opinion, hasn't really looked sharp this season. I'd agree with that. I'm always on the edge when he comes in, kind of like when Hicks starts a game. Yeah. I would agree with that. I'll let Ricky start off because I'm going to pull something up here.
Yeah, I think we're getting pretty close to the point of we might have to look elsewhere in the pen in that role that Trevino's currently in. It looked like originally he was going to be a guy that might be coming in the seventh inning, in high leverage situations when you're in a tie ball game or you might have a 1 or 2 run lead. But now we're kind of at the point where Trevino's pretty much stuck to coming in when the Giants are down or just purely garbage time. And I believe when I looked at his numbers the other day, he had now been up to 4 home runs given up in 10 innings, I believe. So, I mean, with Trevino, if you're giving up 4 home runs in 10 innings, you're not going to last very long, especially when you're pitching in Oracle. If you're giving up home runs at that frequency, you got to look elsewhere. Like Cody put up, you have Tristan Beck, who, I mean, I predicted before the season to make the opening day roster. I understand why he started out in SAC this year, but you've got him dominating in Sacramento right now, and then you have Sean Jelly, who was a lot more reliable last year, more often than not, than Trevino has been in a small sample size this year. So I just, it's one of those things. Trevino hasn't pitched in the big leagues for a couple of years now. Bob Melvin trusts him, but he's a little bit older. And ultimately, if he's going to be hanging stuff every time he goes out there, you cannot afford to keep putting him out there, because the Giants have shown time and time again that they're a team that's going to hang around in ball games. I mean, I think I can count on one hand this year how many times that the Giants have completely been out of a game. Almost every single game they're in it, even if they don't win. It's a 1-run loss, a 2-run loss, maybe a 3-run loss. But I mean, how many times this season have we already seen the Giants come back? So they desperately need guys, even when they're down, to come in and throw strikes and put up zeros. Because, I mean, for the most part, the rest of the pen has been pretty damn reliable. They're, I believe, top 3 in the big leagues right now in ERA, while the starting rotation is in the bottom third of the league. So you desperately need a guy like Trevino to either provide innings or be a lot more steady out there. Because, like I said, the solution is in Sacramento right now.
Yeah, I agree. And you could even look at Sean Jelly. I mean, Sean Jelly's been really solid down there too. I think he has like a 1.8 or 1.9 ERA in Sacramento, and the PCL is no joke. So if you have a sub-2 ERA in the PCL, that is exceptional, because that is a really difficult league to pitch in. And I kind of highlighted it for a second. Tristan Beck on April 1st had, he went 1 1/3, 3 hits, 2 walks, gave up 2 earned runs. That's his only blemish on the season so far. He had 1 bad outing. Other than that, he threw a 2-inning game in the 1 outing he had in March. Just walked a guy, gave up 1 hit. But since then, you see this. He goes, only allowed 1 hit in 2 innings. Perfect inning. 1 walk in an inning. 1 hit in 2 innings. Perfect. 1 2/3 perfect innings. 1 hit in 2. I mean, he is just dominating in SAC right now. There's no reason this guy shouldn't be in a major league bullpen. The only reason this guy isn't in a major league bullpen right now is because Lou Trevino has a relationship with Bob Melvin. Like, I'm just going to call it how it is. Like that's just where we're at. So to me, get him up here. He'd be a good multi-inning option. To Ricky's point, even the game that got out of control and they lost 11-3 to the Brewers a couple days ago. Mm-hmm. It was a 3-1 game in the 5th inning, I think.
The 6th inning.
Or 6th inning. Sorry, it was a 3-1 game. Inning. And we've seen the Giants come back time and time again. Hicks, gets in trouble, does kind of what he does. He runs out of gas, gets in trouble. They pull him, and Trevino just imploded. And I'm not saying Beck 100% wouldn't have, because you never know, but Beck has just been a pretty solid pitcher for a few years while Trevino was rehabbing. So I would rather see Beck currently on this team. I think, honestly, I don't think Trevino gets picked up if you DFA him. I really think you could end up stashing him in SAC.
if he wants to do that.
If he's willing. Yeah, I think you could. And I think he might be willing because I don't think another team would really pick him up. And he might just be like, you know what, I need to get right. And because he has potential. Like, I'm not going to sit there and say Trevino can't be a good pitcher. It's just, I think he's got some stuff he needs to work out. So.
Yeah. And I mean, if we're being quite honest, in the springtime, I think Trevino, out of the three of them, didn't really earn the role at all. Like you said, it was purely because of a past relationship, which I understand from Melvin's standpoint. When he was with him in the A's, several years ago now, he was very solid. I mean, he closed games at times, but when you have a guy like Beck sitting there and Jelly, they both have the ability to spot start for you even. They're just a lot more versatile. And with Tristan Beck, I mean, shoot, he could even go in the later innings if you really need him to. I mean, we've seen him ramp it up with his velo quite a bit at times. So I'm just a lot more, of a bigger fan of that versatility. I mean, with Trevino, you're kind of capped out at 2 innings. But with Beck, I mean, if you had, say, Verlander implode on you, what is it, tomorrow he's starting?
Yeah, I think it's Verlander.
If say he imploded on you tomorrow, Beck could come in right away and give you 4 or 5 innings if he really needed to. That wouldn't be out of question. It could really save the bullpen, and that's what they're kind of lacking right now. Because while the pen has been good, I don't feel like they've really truly used anybody in that long relief role. You've seen an occasional 2 or 3 inning appearance from a couple of different guys, Birdsong and Bivens right now, but you haven't seen anybody really take on that role. And I think that would help a ton. But I will say, even with some of the walk issues that have come up recently, the Giants starters have done a good job of, at least getting into the 6th inning and not completely screwing the bullpen. I think they kind of started to show a little bit of sign of life there in that regard in Philly, and then a little bit more when they're down in Anaheim. And then they kind of continued it into San Francisco this week. So, I mean, the bullpen is in a pretty good spot for the most part versus where they're at on the homestand previous to that.
Yeah. No, I agree. And one positive having a guy like Beck is, if you get a late scratch guy, somebody has a blister, somebody gets under the weather or whatever, something like that. Right now, theoretically, you could do it with Bivens, but realistically, Birdsong's your only real option that you could emergency throw a starter in there. Because, I mean, if you're on the road and this comes up, there's not much you can do. Like, if you're at home, they might be able to get somebody over from SAC early in the day. But, if you're on the road, especially, you kind of are at the mercy of who you have available. And if Birdsong's rested, you could theoretically throw him out there for maybe 4 or 5 innings. But if you have both Birdsong and a guy like Tristan Beck on the roster, it just doubles your opportunities to have a guy that's available to go 4 or 5 innings in an emergency start situation. Now, that said, I think both of us agree that Birdsong should just be in the rotation, but we'll turn to that in a moment. Tom says, any idea why Melvin soured on Sean Jelly when he was so vocal about him last spring? I don't know if Melvin really soured on him. I think it just had to do with Jelly and Beck both had options. And granted, so did Bivens, but both those guys had minor league options and they liked Trevino and they just wanted to keep him around. Now, that said, I think we've made it clear how we feel about Trevino in this team right now, but I think that's more or less what the situation was. And frankly, I don't think Sean Jelly had earned the job over Beck. So even if they didn't go Trevino, I felt like Beck earned the job more than Jelly did. So, yeah,
I agree. I think a lot of it comes down to just how much time he missed last year too. I mean, we got to see him for, a cup of tea in San Francisco at the end of last season. That was about it. But like I said, I did think he looked good in Arizona during spring training. So, and then he's kind of just continued that on into Sacramento this year. So
Yeah.
Hopefully that's soon. I think of all the things that, fans have been the most reactionary on to start this season, I think Trevino possibly getting DFA'd is the most reasonable of all of them. And a move that I don't think would be too premature at this point. Now, with some of the other guys that are struggling on the hitting side of things, I think we're just going to have to wait. I mean, I've said it pretty consistently. Most of these guys are going to have to get to 100 at-bats before we really start looking at, making some serious roster moves. And I know you've said it a lot of times too. Some of it's going to be kind of weathering the storm until Harrar comes back and then kind of reevaluating where you're at with your roster. I mean, we can just jump right into LaMonte Wade. Obviously,
I've had
we've
this ready for you.
Yeah. Are you ready for the tweet?
Yep, y'all ready? You can, by the way, this is before the game, so you can slap the 0 for 3 from today into these numbers.
Yeah, so it isn't pretty. I mean, honestly, his numbers over the course of the last 4 months he's played Major League Baseball, his numbers do look a little bit better than they currently do right now, over a bigger sample size, of course. But we're kind of getting at a point where, things might start getting a little bit more serious with LaMonte if he continues to struggle the way he's struggling right now once Harrar comes back. I think Casey being out definitely severely hurts their depth there, and you're not really in a position where you're going to cut bait this early in the season. But I think we're at the point where once Harrar does come back, even though he is a right-handed hitter, you might be looking at other options at first base, or maybe going away from a platoon situation and going to a full-time first baseman over there, because you still have Wilmer, who hopefully at some point can move away from the DH spot and fill in occasionally at first on defense. But yeah, Lamont's at about, I think after today's game, 86 at-bats, something like that. So, I mean, we're getting pretty close to that 100 at-bat benchmark. And I think it goes on a little bit further than that. But like I said, if he continues to slump, here in about a month or so, they might have to look at other options at first base. The guy's down to a 0.94 batting average. He's been kind of fighting with hitting 100 at this point. He has picked up a few walks on this homestand. I'll give him that. But, man, the hits have been hard to come by. I've seen him hit a couple hard line drives in the infield that have gotten caught or stopped for putouts, but we're just at the point where he's not walking enough. He's striking out too much. His defense has been really rough this, last week after he started the season out looking a lot better. And we're just kind of at the point where that experiment might be over. He's in a contract year. He's on an expiring deal, and it might be time to just start looking elsewhere. He's been a limited player, and he's one of those guys. He gets the smallest injury and he's just a complete shell of himself and just can't really power through. It's just very apparent when he's not right. So I think where they're at with, Wade and Bailey's hitting, and then you pair that with, a couple other guys in the lineup that haven't really picked up their hitting as of late, in Adames and Ramos, like, you got to start figuring something out. They're finding ways to squeak out wins at the end of games when they're getting into other teams' bullpens. But yeah, I think it might come down to, looking at other options, or maybe even bringing up Jake Lamb just for the sake of having a lefty bat and a little bit better defense there at first.
Yeah. It's just mind-boggling looking at what's going on with Wade. This is so reminiscent of both Tyro Estrada and Austin Slater.
Mm-hmm.
Like guys that fell apart at the end of a season and then just carried it over into another season. But because of the break, everybody's like, well, it's fine. It's a new season. We don't care about what happened last season. And it's like, there is an overwhelming amount of evidence that this is just it's moving past being a slump. Like it is just, he's not good right now. And it is what it is. Like people can want to be patient all they want, but it's like, honest question for everybody. Do you really have any more faith in LaMonte Wade Jr. right now in the box than David VR? Which we all know how David VR looked in the past. And, I give VR credit. He has a new batting stance. To me, he looks much more ready to hit than has with his dollar store Aaron Rowan stance that he had going before. But at least now, like I watch both guys, and I'm like, VR actually looks like he's got something of a clue up there right now, which small sample size, but keep in mind, people, I watch all the AAA games as well. So VR has looked comfortable in the box. It is AAA, not the majors. I'll acknowledge that, but it's just, Wade looks so lost right now, and he doesn't even look like he's getting off quality at bats, like just in general. And there's a few guys, like it's not just him. Like Ricky said, there's several guys in the lineup that just don't look good currently in the box. I mean, Adames has looked pretty bad for much of the year. Ramos, I said earlier today, he just looks like he's between speeds. He's late on every fastball, but he's early on every breaking ball, and it just looks like he's like trying to react. There's a lot of guys slumping, but there's only one dude that can't even get on the interstate. Like that's a problem. So I don't know what the answer is, but I think Ricky's right. I think he's pretty much on a clock right now. And I think the day Herrera Encarnacion comes back, if LaMonte Wade Jr. is just not turning it around, I think he's going to be the guy that gets DFA'd when they have to activate Herrera. So,
yeah. And just to be clear, guys, since I know it may come off like we're being way too reactionary and it's way too early in the season. I mean, we're basically a month into the season, and there is a short list of guys around the major leagues that get into 100 to 200 at bats in the year with a sub 100 batting average with zero power and below average defense that are going to stick on that same team without either getting optioned or getting DFA'd.
Yeah.
It's very rare. And those are guys that are very established. Like obviously say like a Pete Alonso went on a strikeout binge and was just atrocious. Obviously a guy like that, even if he's not locked up long-term, he's going to stay around. Of course, those are guys with name recognition, but guys like LaMonte Wade don't have enough built up to withstand a 2-month-long stretch of just absolutely not hitting and not playing defense. Like, that's just not going to happen at all. And I know it sounds funny mentioning Jake Lamb. I'm not saying Jake Lamb is the answer by any means. I'm not a Jake Lamb kind of guy. But ultimately, if it comes down to getting a lefty that plays first base and is going to give you better defense, shoot, that'll keep you in a lot more games than what Lamont's putting on tape right now at first base. It's rough. So I'm just being plain honest. Yeah, and Aaron Jacques will be in San Francisco starting tomorrow. So
yeah, it's the races on this weekend.
We'll see.
Jock needs to get a hit to get over 100 and then just bust out the "I'm so fast" afterward. Oh man. Yeah, no, it's ugly. I mean, Mike, I get what you're saying, man. He's due, yada yada. Like we could look at it a lot of different ways, but like I said, it's just this is getting to the point where it is a huge sample size. It is no longer. I mean, you're talking about over half of a season worth of baseball since the last time he was actually productive in any capacity. So that's just too long. You can't just give a guy forever to figure it out, especially a guy of his caliber. So, yeah, we'll see. It's he's gonna have some time, but yeah.
And just for context, guys, Austin Slater last year made it to early July with the Giants before they cut bait with him, and he was only hitting against lefties, so his at bats were even more spread out. And right around the mid 80s at bat mark, is where they cut bait with Austin Slater, and that's exactly where they're at with LaMonte Wade right now. So, I mean, we're not too far off, man. And I mean, we can say he's due just purely because of how bad his numbers are, but I mean, if you watch the games, the guy looks like he does not want to take the bat off his shoulder, plain and simple. I've seen so many at-bats where he's taking fastballs in a 3-1 count, just grooved right over the middle of the plate. And it's like, if you're ever going to come out of a slump, that's the pitch to hit, man. You don't start swinging the bat when you're down 0-2. Like, when you're ahead in the count, those are times to take advantage of good pitches, not just purely be looking for walks every time and hoping the guy loses it. It's like, at some point, you got to take the bat off your shoulder.
Yeah, absolutely. One last thing I'm going to say about LaMonte before we move on, because, you know, we did talk about LaMonte for like a good 15 minutes last week, and we're not trying to beat the dead horse into the ground here. Yeah. But this was courtesy of Cam. He said LaMonte Wade only has 49 hits since May of 2024, and only 14 of them are extra base hits. He's a first baseman, everyone. Have some pop. Like, get out of here if that's all you're going to do. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. But shout out, Nathan. Appreciate you, man. How do you guys feel about Melvin and Posey so far? Well, I know Ricky's got some strong feelings on Melvin, so I'll leave Melvin to him. But and we'll get into the bullpen talk a little bit. But Posey, I mean, it is way too early for me to really judge Posey. The main thing that I do like that I'm seeing out of not just the major league team, but you're seeing it more in the minors, a bit more fundamental baseball in the way they're trying to play. You know, obviously the defense has been struggling a bit, but the greater emphasis on putting the ball in play has been just really nice to see. So that's going to be the big thing for me. But Melvin, we'll have a talk on this one because I know Ricky's got some feelings, so I'm going to kick it over to him.
Yeah, regarding Melvin, I mean, I'm kind of conflicted on it. Personally, I don't think Melvin as a manager is like a huge difference maker. I would say I honestly put him in the same realm as Gabe Kapler as far as like what level of manager they are at this point in Melvin's career. I think both of them are good at very different things. And I think it's very clear that Melvin's weak point is the bullpen and how he manages those arms down there. And that's not any surprise. I mean, you ask any A's fan for years, that is always going to be their biggest gripe with Bob Melvin is the way he manages a bullpen. And, you know, you could say the same thing in San Diego and why he's not managing theirs anymore as well. I don't think he's terrible at all. I think, you know, Cody and I had a conversation the other day about this. I think Melvin does a great job, you know, keeping guys together. He knows how to run a clubhouse. I give him credit for that. I really do appreciate the continuity in the lineup this year, as frustrating as it is to not see, you know, some of these bench guys getting at bats ever. I also have an appreciation for our starters getting consistent day in, day out at bats to work their way out of slumps. I mean, it did wonders for Tyler Fitzgerald already. So I definitely appreciate that. I feel like I do agree with the way he views things more often than not. But when it comes to the bullpen, I'm going to continue to say this all season long. He's got to find roles for these guys. Obviously, early on, he had the role for Walker to be the closer. I mean, that's already kind of up in the air, even though I personally think Walker should keep his job for the time being. But outside of Walker, I mean, there was just no clear roles. I mean, if you watch the games, you have a guy like Randy Rodriguez, for example. I've seen him come in as early as the third inning this season with bases loaded and no outs multiple times. And then I've also seen him come in late in games, and then I've seen him in the middle working longer relief. There's just no clear role for a guy like him who very clearly has earned a more important role in this bullpen late in games. I think we've seen Lou Trevino in all sorts of situations, and it's burned them more often than not. I think he's left guys in for way too long at times as well. I've seen just the Giants pitching staff as a whole completely get away from throwing strikes for some reason after we heard all offseason and all spring training that they were going to get back to throwing strikes. And here they are, top 10 in most walks allowed as a staff. So I just really think that if this season is going to go well and this team is going to go, and make a playoff run and actually win a playoff series, they're going to have to establish some roles in the pen. Birdsong, he's another example. Birdsong, there's games where you would think, okay, this is the perfect time to get Birdsong in, have him throw 3 to 4 innings, and then you never see him. And then in another game, you see him throw 1 inning or 2 innings late in a game like he's a late inning reliever. And it's just so all over the place. I'm like,
yeah.
Me personally, if I'm a pitcher in that bullpen, I would feel kind of on edge because I would never know what kind of situation I'm coming into each game. And obviously, as a relief pitcher, it's always going to be like that. You're just going to have to wait and see how the game goes. But even then, you don't really know what your role is and where you're going to fit in. Like, if the Giants are leading from the 6th inning on 3-1, you should know 7th inning, 8th inning, 9th inning, exactly who's coming in unless somebody needs a rest day. It should be Randy, Rogers, Doval, Randy, Rogers, Walker, or some combination like that. Or, you want to go Doval and Walker back-to-back, sure, and then go Rogers in the 7th inning. Just create some kind of role for these guys in the bullpen. Stick to Bivens in long relief. Don't be burning Eric Miller in the 4th inning or the 5th inning of a game where you might need him later on against the middle of the order with 3 lefties coming up. It's just get some kind of consistency down there, and we'll probably see the Giants not blow as many games. Still early, but he's got to figure that out at some point by midseason or there's going to be problems down in the pen.
Yeah. No, I agree. One thing I always think back to is, especially in 2010 and 2012, and I mean, really much of that role or that run, when Bochy was running the club, there was never a question of who was going to be in what inning and what. I mean, by the 5th inning, you could generally predict the order in which they were going to come out of the pen. In 2010, it was going to be it was either going to be, depending on obviously who was healthy, rested, etc. It was going to be Casilla or Affeldt in the 6th, 7th innings. It was going to be Romo and Javi in like the 7th, 8th inning, depending on matchups. And then it was going to be Wilson in the 9th. 2012, it was going to be Casilla, Affeldt, Javi in whatever order, and then Romo was going to close. It was just, there was always a pecking order there. You knew the other guys in the pen. You knew if it was a blowout and they just needed a filler, Guillermo Mota was going to throw an inning or 2 in the 9th, 8th, 9th, 7th, whatever. He was going to go out there and be the sacrificial lamb. You always knew what everybody's role was. And to Ricky's point, you really don't right now. The only guy I'm going to say you mentioned doesn't have a role that I'd say actually I feel like he does is Randy Rodriguez, and that's specifically because he's the tourniquet. He is literally the stop the bleeding in whatever inning that is, which sucks for Randy because it's like you never know when this guy's going to come into a game. But that seems to be the only thing that they use him for. I mean, he hasn't pitched since the 18th, 6 days ago. I mean, it's like the game that Trevino came in for Hicks, Randy Rodriguez was on 4 days of rest. That'd have been perfect time to put him in the game.
But see, that kind of that goes into my point, though. He really doesn't have a role, because if that were his role, he would have came into that situation. It's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And I feel like the Giants, I've said this all offseason long, the Giants have good enough arms to have roles down there. Like, this should continue to be a very good Ziggy.
Hey, somebody's got to have that role, man. Can't win them all.
Well, like Cody said, even on the Bochy-led teams, you had that sacrificial lamb. If that's what Trevino's going to be, that's what Trevino's going to be. But stick him to that role. I should not see him when the game is still on the line.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, he should not have been thrown into a 2-run ball game to try to save the day when the guy is giving up bombs left and right.
Yeah.
But yeah, just come up with roles, and of course, it's odd timing now because as some fans would say, we have a Ryan Walker dilemma, which I don't necessarily agree with. We have fans that are already calling for his job after one blown save and then the hiccup in last night's game versus the Brewers. And I don't know, what are your thoughts on that situation? I have my own thoughts, but what are your thoughts on the Ryan Walker situation?
I mean, so the way I look at Walker is I am not, in no way am I saying he shouldn't be the closer right now. He's earned it. Like, that's the reality. I mean, you could go out and say Camilo Duvall lost the job last season, and you wouldn't be really wrong. But Ryan Walker also earned the job by being the most consistent reliever for like 2 years. So he earned the right to be the closer. And before the game against Los Angeles, he was 15 for 15 in save situations. It's hard. I do wonder if he is better suited being in kind of more of like the role that Randy Rodriguez has been used in. I mean, he's shown he can go multiple innings. He's shown he can get guys get out of trouble pretty well. I kind of wonder if he'd be better off in that role. That said, Camilo as the full-time closer kind of terrifies me again, because now, hey, good for him. He held a runner today. He actually showed that he cared about a guy on first base. He has been a bit better with the pitch clock, things like that. All the things that we were really down on him last season for. He's at least showing effort, but it's pretty tough. Like Walker shouldn't lose his job yet. He absolutely should not lose it yet. He deserves to keep having the opportunity to go out there, but he very clearly has either lost a release point or something, because he is struggling to throw strikes right now. And if you're not going to throw strikes, you're not going to last as a closer. So that's kind of where I stand on him. So hopefully he can get it together. And, if he doesn't, luckily, I feel like there are probably 3 guys in the bullpen right now, well, him included, that I feel pretty good about closing games. I mean, I put out my bold take yesterday. I said by the end of the year, Randy Rodriguez is going to be their closer. That's just my opinion. But, hopefully, in all reality, hopefully it doesn't get to that, because that means that probably both Walker and Duvall had big time issues this season. So,
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not ready to take Walker out of the closer role at all. If he were constantly getting completely lit up, I would be honestly more concerned than I am with, a couple games of some strike throwing issues, just because I definitely think he can correct that. I don't think Walker is a guy that you really worry about too much with throwing strikes. He had 18 walks in 80 innings last season with a ton of strikeouts. I totally think he'll come around. I mean, Duvall is the one that has consistently shown an inability to throw strikes at times and has a hard time getting out of it, especially because hitters are kind of able to really zone in on what to sit on with him. He goes through periods of time where he's way too reliant on his slider, and it's just slider, ball consistently. And then they're just sitting on a fastball or waiting to get walked, or he ends up hanging a slider later on for a home run. So I'm far less concerned with Walker than I was Duvall last season, just because I'm sure that the control will come back around and then he'll be totally fine. Like I said, if you're getting hit up, I'd start worrying like, oh, maybe, they're starting to get timed up to his fastball, or they're starting to get more used to what to expect from his movement and his weird arm action. But I haven't really seen that with Walker. It's just him completely losing control where the ball's going. And I just don't see that being an issue for him all season long. Now, I have to applaud Melvin for pulling him the other night, just because, obviously he was reluctant to do that the first time, even though I thought he absolutely should have been pulled. even though that goes against what managers do. It's just, I thought he should have been pulled. It was very obvious. He had no idea where the ball was going. He would hook a slider completely into the left-handed batter's box, and then the next pitch he'd throw a sinker into the right-handed batter's box, and it was just completely all over the place. And there's nothing more important, especially when you have a 3 and 4 run lead, than to just pound the damn zone and let them do something with it, because nobody's going to hit a 4-run homer with nobody on base to lead off an inning. You just got to throw strikes. It's really that simple. Guys will get themselves out. So I understand the move. I didn't agree with it. And then he came back in last night's game and saw Walker was doing more of the same thing. He once again had a huge lead, a 4-run lead in this case, and just completely didn't have it. He was giving up hard contact on a couple occasions, and then the ball was just going all over the place. Had Doval warmed up ahead of time, brought him in, shut it down immediately, and then they won the ball game. So I got to applaud him for, switching it up in that case. And then, going back to the hot hand today and just, kind of putting the closer role to the wayside and let, Walker kind of gather himself and not get too much in his own head. He still is a very young pitcher. And then he even said today after the game, Walker will be coming into a save situation if they are in that spot tomorrow night. So I think that's a good way to approach it. Don't completely just remove him from that spot and kill his confidence, but also give him a little bit of a breather to gather himself. And you never know, the guy might just have been battling a little bit of fatigue.
Yeah. Well, he did get, Walker did pitch the day before that Angels outing. Like, he got the save the night before. So,
yeah.
And he was sharp in that game. So it's like, he could have been just fatigued. And, to your point, like I obviously you and I went back and forth on that one. I'm like, no manager ever pulls their closer who's saved 15 of 15, even though, like you said, he was kind of spiking balls all over the place. But like, we had seen Doval do that in a bunch of games and then pull it together. And we'd seen, Brian Wilson was like the king of loading the bases. Every save situation, it felt like he was always battling stuff like that. And he would walk a couple dudes because he just refused to give something over the plate. A little different than just spiking stuff. But, it's tough because Walker kind of earned the right to have the benefit of the doubt there. He has, managed to get the job done in those situations. He was 100% to that point. And the one thing I did want to point out was Doval and Rogers had both been burned already in that game. So it was kind of one of those situations of who do you turn to? Now, I could sit here and make a case that, hey, that'd have been a perfect time to put Randy Rodriguez in and just be like, all right, kid, let's see what you got. But they might not feel as good about a guy that has less than a year at the major league level closing out a game like that in that kind of situation. You could also have gone to like Eric Miller, who's struggled in those very few situations he's had those opportunities. So that's why I think they kind of just wrote it out with Walker. But, this next outing, the one against Milwaukee, it's a little easier to cut bait or make that change in that inning and be like, nope, we're not messing around with this, when A, he just did it a couple days earlier. And it's like, all right, well, he didn't get out of it last time. And B, you also had Doval in your back pocket. They had Doval saved for that. And, you could make an argument that Melvin shouldn't have wasted Doval in that game, but it was a tight game late when they put him in. I think it was a 2-run game and they had used Rogers. So I kind of get it, but yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. It's not an easy thing because conventionally it just never happens. So I see both sides of it, and it's easy to look at it and go, well, it obviously didn't work, so we should have done it, but it's hard.
Yeah.
And kind of, I want to backtrack a little bit because they asked about the whole Melvin Posey thing, and you were talking about their roles and all that. And the one thing I forgot to kind of bring up is it's really hard because this is something that Ricky and I have talked about in the past. Like, it's really easy to point at a manager's mistakes in a game after the fact and be like, he lost us that game there. It is not easy to go and look back at all the games and be like, oh, where did Melvin win the game for us? Where did he make the right call or what are the right moves? Any of that stuff. Like, it's so hard to do the reverse of that. Bochy, it was kind of easy in the playoffs just because as soon as it got to the pen, it was like lights out every time. It just always seemed to work, everything he did. So it was easy to kind of give him credit over a long period of 3 championships in 5 years. But it's really hard game to game. I mean, the team's 17-9, and like we'll look at it and go, well, Melvin's lost like 5 of these games for them. And it's like, okay, but how many are they winning because of the culture he's built, the continuity, like Ricky said, just all the other stuff. So it's just really hard. Like I don't like the Giants' chances in October with Bob Melvin as their manager, but I mean he's kind of proven to be a pretty good regular season manager in his career, with the exception of like the year that he had all the talent in San Diego and they tanked, but they did go to the NLCS the year before, so it's like so.
Yeah, and that's where I bring up the role thing, because if he just establishes roles, like I said, there are plenty enough good arms in this bullpen to establish roles, and then everything works itself out. Because when you have roles, you can defend your decision making a lot easier, because you can say, this is our guy, this is what happened, guys are going to have bad games, and it's as simple as that. And then if that happens when the season plays out, you rolled with your guy and it just didn't work out, and then it's really not on him. So if he can kind of stick to that, all good. It's just, like I say, quit with the mix and matching of every single guy. Eric Miller is like one of the few guys that really has to be kind of mixed and matched in different roles, because he is the one lefty in the pen. So he's going to be coming in at just different times. Like, I'm not going to knock Melvin for bringing Miller in the 6th or 7th inning if it's, say, a tie ball game and you absolutely need those 3 outs and you have the heart of the other team's order coming in that situation. At that time, that is the highest leverage situation where you need to burn him 100%. Now, with all of the other righties in the pen, it's like, okay, let's figure out what we're doing here. Obviously I love seeing Birdsong show out in the late innings in high leverage situations and kind of proving that he needs to be doing more. But it's just like, okay, are we developing a future closer in Birdsong, or are we developing a guy who's going to be starting a lot of games for us in the second half of this season? Obviously they're not necessarily planning to boot somebody out of the rotation, but I mean, the writing's kind of on the wall here. So at least with Rogers, Doval, Walker, Randy, establish roles for those guys, please, is all I ask. And then at that point, I can't even question it, other than, like I said, the occasional, so-and-so needs a rest day. This is who's coming in his spot. The pen has been good, just establish roles, and we are all good on the Melvin front.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Eric Miller should absolutely be able to look at a lineup card, an opposing team's lineup card, and know exactly when he's coming into a game, because he'll know between the 6th and 8th. It's like when you play the Dodgers. I'm going to use them. They're a perfect example for this. Eric Miller should know every game that, especially if they're leading late in a game, or it's tied or they're leading, or it's like even if they're down 1. He should know every game that between the 6th and 8th, he's going to come into the game whenever Shohei and Freddie are going to be due. Every time. And he should have a defined role and identify whatever lefty power guy, whatever big time left-handed hitters on an opposing team. He should know between any of those situations I just listed out, 6th and 8th inning, somewhere in there, he's going to come in. Like that's a defined role right there. So, speaking of Hayden Birdsong, I know Ricky just kind of alluded to it. We've talked about it a little bit. So far this season, he's entered 6 games. He has 13 innings pitched. He's got a 1.38 ERA. He's got a 1.08 WHIP. I think he has like 1 walk on the season, and it was in his last outing. He has been just completely dominant so far this season. I don't know how much clearer it needs to be to this team that he is one of their 5 best starting pitchers and he needs to be in the rotation. Like I don't know what else they need to see. And I understand we could play the game of, who do you kick out and blah, blah, blah. And I've reached the point of I really genuinely don't care who gets booted from the rotation, but somebody needs to for Hayden Birdsong, because I'm in the business of start your 5 best guys. And he is very clearly one of those guys at this point. So I get the concerns on innings. A lot of people have brought up, what happens if, what happens if he hits his innings limit, or what happens if they make the playoffs and he's thrown too many innings and whatever. And I go, and my answer to that is, well, that's a hell of a lot better problem to have than you miss the playoffs by a game or two. And you wonder what if we would have started him earlier in the year? It's if he can only give you 160 innings this season, then manage his innings. Like, to me, it's not rocket science. He's going to make, if you put him in the rotation today, and I made the argument that you could have put him in at the beginning of the year, but if you put him in the rotation today, he would make approximately 27 starts. He's missed 5 rotations through. He can make approximately 27 starts at 13 innings. If he averages 5 to 6 innings a start, he's going to finish right around 150 to 160 innings. And yeah, you might not let him go deep in games. You might have to cut him after 6 innings, even if he's at like 75 pitches or 80 pitches. You might just have to do it. But like, there are ways you can do that, considering that's all you're really getting out of Hicks anyway, as it stands. There are ways you can do that and still have him starting and still manage his innings and still let him build up his arm, because he should be able to get you about 160. And then from there, you can take the training wheels off in 2026. Like that's where I'm at with this. And I like I said, don't care who, he needs to get in.
So. And there's so many different ways you can go about it too. If you're worried about the whole innings thing, which I'm really not, you can do the Phantom IL stuff. You can use his options if you need to. You can literally just rest him for a start at a time here and there and really spread it out. There's just a ton of different ways you can do it without him going over on his innings. And it's very easy to keep track of. And, you have, starting pitching depth this season with, Carson Seymour. You have Wisenhunt, who's not on the 40-man yet. You have Kyle Harrison. It's just, shoot, you even have Tristan Beck and Sean Jelly in there that can kind of, spot start you games too. So it's just, there's tons of options. There's no reason you can't do it. And ultimately, if you're ever worried about the ceiling at some point in the season being, 5 or 6 innings with him, you're essentially getting 5 innings on average out of Hicks and sometimes less. So you're really not losing anything there if he is the one that gets booted and say goes to the bullpen. So at some point you got to do it. The starters seriously need to pick up the slack. It's early. We can be patient with Verlander, Ray, and Hicks, but they seriously have to carry their weight a little bit more. I will say it does look like Verlander's starting to come out of it. He is showing signs of improvement for sure. I think he's had some bad luck. And as hard as I've been on Jordan Hicks, I will say he has had to work a little bit harder at times because of the defense making just some really silly mistakes. But it really comes down to Ray, Hicks, and Verlander all getting ahead in counts more often and throwing strikes, plain and simple. These guys are around league average to below league average in strike percentage this season. And they've seriously got to pick it up because it's definitely hurting them. The Giants will win a ton more games than they're even winning right now if they can just start throwing more strikes, plain and simple. Because that's also putting more pressure on the defense as well by throwing free guys on base, every other inning, or even in today's case, Roop was walking a guy every single inning today. So,
yeah. Ray gave me a little bit of hope with the last, 3 innings of his last start. Like, he had those first 2 innings where he just couldn't find the zone at all. And he's walking almost 7 per 9 right now. Like it's 6.7 per 9. It's bad. Just to Ricky's point there. He did finally look like he kind of found the feel for his off speed. Like that's been severely missing for like his last 3 outings. He's had zero feel for his slider, and he's up there just throwing fastballs. And I mean, he's not an idiot. He can't just keep throwing fastballs right up over the middle. He'll get hammered. So he's like trying to get chases and stuff like that. But when you have no off speed, like you're in deep doo-doo at that point. But and to Ricky's point about Hicks, I mean, I struggle with the whole Jordan Hicks thing. He, his stuff is supposedly better. Everybody talks about, oh, the velo's up. He's carrying it late in games. All his stuff is good. And then you look down the line and you go, his whip's up. His strikeout rate's down. His walk rate's up. He's throwing fewer strikes than he was last season. Like there's all these things. Like he has moments where he looks brilliant. And he, you look at innings 2 through 7 against the Phillies. He just kind of mowed through them. I mean, he was fired up. It was good to see that part, but he just is always susceptible to that huge implosion at any given time. And he's getting knocked around. Like opponent's average against is up. Like every number is up. And this is after last season. For the last 34 innings of his 109 that he threw last season, he was gassed out and he was getting lit up. So his already ballooned numbers from last season are even worse this season. And I'm supposed to expect a guy that's never thrown more than 109 innings is going to somehow look better at the end of the year. Like, I don't know about that. So it's pretty tough. Realistically, Roop would probably be the guy that makes the most sense right now, especially because he's never thrown in since he's been in the minors, he hasn't thrown more than like 75 innings in a season. He's had some injuries, or he might have gotten up around 100, I think, his first full season. But he hasn't thrown more than like 70 in the last 2 seasons. So he would maybe make the most sense for now, but it's pretty tough. Like, I don't know how you keep Birdsong out any longer. It's just, dude, put the best team out there to win games. Like, for God's sake, that's all we're asking for here. So.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the thing a lot of people fail to realize when talking about Jordan Hicks is not just the lack of the ability to stay ahead in counts and throw strikes. It's also when you look at his game logs, and outside of the one start to start the season in Houston, he's, like you said, he's leaving a ton of guys on base, and it's like that is not a recipe for success. At some point, not everything is going to go right for you, and you're not going to be able to squeak out of the game with 5 1/3 and 3 earned runs given up. Specifically in his second start, that's what he did. It was 5 1/3 with 3 earned runs given up with 9 base runners. Like at some point, all it takes is one guy to hit a double off of you to clear the bases to end your outing, and then there goes your decent outing for the day, and you only gave 5 1/3, and then the bullpen's having to finish the second half of the game for you while you didn't even limit the damage to the opposing team. So it's just it's rough. I mean, league average is around 63% strike throwing percentage, and he's had 2 starts already where he's been in the 50s. And that's just, like I said, plain and simple, it's not sustainable. And, Kruko actually went on KNBR the other day and was talking about Jordan Hicks' velo being up. And he was saying, honestly, I think the guy's throwing it too hard right now. He's a starting pitcher and he has a ton of weapons, but he's plain and simple overthrowing right now. His slider, he is throwing way too hard. And a lot of times you're seeing him spike it completely into the left-handed hitter's batter's box. It's one of those things. It's like, trust your stuff, man. Like when it's working, his slider is good. When it's working, his sinker is filthy. It's high 90s, and he doesn't even need to throw it that hard, because what good is it doing when you're throwing 102, but you don't even average a strikeout per inning, which is where he's at right now. You're walking about 4 to 5 batters per 9 innings right now, while not striking out a guy per inning. So what is happening with those other guys that are on base when you have to face the other hitters? Odds are, more often than not, you're going to give up runs regardless of what the defense is doing. And while his Brewers start specifically, when the game got out of hand, the defense wasn't great, but at the same time, when you're a ground ball pitcher, you've got to throw strikes, because what happened to him is the Brewers, like I mentioned earlier, being a scrappy team, are putting the ball in play. And in Oracle, you are going to have slow rollers from time to time. It happens to Webb all the time. He's the same type of pitcher. Only difference is Webb throws strikes at a very high percentage most of the time. He's up into the 70s this year on average. So, that's Hicks's recipe for success. He doesn't need to strike guys out with his sinker, but he needs to throw strikes and be in the zone and stay ahead of guys, because even though those infield hits don't look bad on his end, like I said, if you give up an infield hit and then you walk a guy and then you give up one legitimate double that inning, it's possible if it goes in the gap, you're giving up 2 runs, especially with 2 outs. So it's like, you look at his last 3 starts and he's given up, I think, 5 runs, 7 runs. The start before that, it was 3 runs and 5 1/3. And the only start he's really been good is the first start. And that's just, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's rough. And to your point about base runners, his last 4 starts, because he had that dominant start in Houston, his last 4 starts, 9 base runners, 11 base runners, 11 base runners. And then yesterday he gave up 11 base runners. Like, you can't just keep leaving dudes all over the paths and expect to get out of it all day long. Like, it's just, that's not sustainable. So he's going to have to turn it around. If they want to stick it out, like, I get it. If they want to, like, give Roop a break, put him in the pen, because Roop's, like I said, he's the guy that's going to probably need to be on more of a little pitch count, so to speak. That's fine. Go that route and see if Hicks can come out of it. But they're going to have to make a decision on Hicks before too long. You can't just let him keep throwing like this and just say, oh, you're a starter, because he does not have the pedigree and the track record to me to justify that for long periods. And it kind of brings us to something somebody brought up earlier. I started the comment. A couple people here. Really quick, actually, a couple people mentioned Frederick. Y'all see Birdsong's fastball is 2 more inches of ride. If that sticks, starter is second best option in the rotation. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I've said Birdsong's their best pitching prospect in the system for 2 years now. Like, his stuff's that good, and the fact that his fastball has the extra ride now, even better, because his off speed, his changeup's lethal. His curveball is kind of underused, but it's really good. The only pitch that he has that I don't really think is like a plus pitch at all is his slider, but that's just a different movement. That's all it is. It's a steal, a strike here and there.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. So,
I think the development of his changeup has been the biggest development, honestly, because we saw it right off the bat when he debuted last year. He wasn't really using it in the minors. The second he came up to the big leagues, he started featuring it. It was really good, just a little bit inconsistent. And then this year he changed the grip on it, and it's been a lot better.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Cole says, so for those of you that haven't seen, let me share this again. I got another something for you guys. Another one courtesy of Jeff Young. Kyle Harrison struck out 8 today, 18 swing and misses in 6 innings while averaging 94.4 with his 4-seamer earlier today in Sacramento. For those of you wondering, I have not watched that start yet. Been kind of bouncing around other games. Obviously, the Giants game wrapped up early today, but still on dad duty, and I was watching the Eugene game where Tibbs hit a couple doubles and Bo Davidson hit a freaking tank about 430 feet. So I haven't caught up on the Sacramento game yet, but that is good to hear out of Kyle Harrison. And it brings us to Cole's question. He says, when do you guys think Harrison will be up? And my short answer on that would be probably if there are some injuries. Like, I don't really think he's going to get the opportunity before Birdsong, nor do I think he deserves the opportunity before Birdsong. The one thing I could see happening is them sending Birdsong down to Sacramento for like a couple starts just to build up his pitch count a little bit. In which case, maybe if they were like to need a starter, they would then pull Harrison or Carson Seymour's on the 40-man. Wisenhunt's not on the 40-man, but he's been throwing the ball really well. That kind of puts him at a disadvantage. But I could see a situation like that. But the problem is unless they lose multiple starters right now, it's hard to predict when Harrison's going to get his shot. Now, that said, he had a good start today, but he has struggled with his command quite a bit this season, just like he has in past seasons. I've said his stuff looks a little bit sharper, and I'll stand by that. The fastball velo is coming back. The slider looks a little bit sharper. The changeup's been playing nicely. But when you're not throwing strikes, it caps your ceiling. And he's shown he can get outs in the major leagues, but I wonder what his ceiling is like when you just struggle outright to throw strikes. So that he still needs some development, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think it's a wake-up call he probably needs, honestly. He now has some serious competition, and it'll give him a chance with a lot less pressure to really fine-tune his slider, get better fastball command, correct his mechanics. That's another thing for him. And I think with Roop being there and being pretty solid at the big league level for the most part, and Birdsong looking ready, and then you got Wisenhunt, who's right there with him in Sacramento, who has been pitching better than him and throwing strikes, which is a very big development for the minor leagues. I think Harrison might be pretty, deep on their starting pitching depth chart. Even though Wisenhunt isn't on the 40-man yet, I mean, he's definitely outplayed him quite a bit. And then you have a few other guys in Sacramento that are on the 40-man as well right now. And, Seymour and Ragsdale and those guys. So, I don't know. The only thing I think Harrison really has going for him for the most part is just the fact that he's a lefty more than anything. The strikeout numbers, I don't think anybody's surprised to see that he's striking a ton of guys out. I'm not really surprised that his velo's up, but he still needs to correct those things if he's going to be consistent in the big league. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe we just see him in Sacramento the whole year. I mean, he ultimately came up at a very young age, so it might be what's best for him in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's only 23 right now. It's not like this is some old prospect. He's 23 years old. So we can all be patient on Kyle Harrison. Like, that's not the end of the world. And I do think realistically that there is a very strong chance, if he just throws well throughout the year and continues his development, that he's going to get opportunities in the second half. Like they've talked about it with Birdsong. I just don't think Birdsong should have to wait. But the reality is, how confident is everybody in Landon Roop and Jordan Hicks lasting into August? Because I'm not. So one of those will probably be Birdsong filling in. And this is assuming health out of Ray and Verlander and, knock on wood, Logan Webb. But just those two spots, that's going to leave a spot probably that will open up at some point this season.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to be Harrison? Maybe. Is it going to be Wisenhunt or Carson Seymour, who have both, like you said, thrown the ball better than Harrison has? Mm-hmm. It could be. I mean, there are a handful of people that could fill that spot, but I do kind of foresee a spot opening up. Now, granted, it might be none of the above. This might end up being hey, we trade for Freddie Peralta at the deadline, or we trade for a starting pitcher at the deadline because we feel like we need that boost. We need someone that's closer to an ace caliber pitcher to jump in and, step in. Who knows? But I do think you're looking at two different spots in the rotation that are not going to be filled by the guys that currently reside there at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think, it's something we've talked about before. I think it really all comes down to what their record's looking like. Yeah. Come mid-season. If the Giants are winning at the pace they're currently winning at, and they're kind of where they're at right now in the standings at that point in the season, it's not out of question that they go and trade from their pitching depth and say, hey, Milwaukee, Freddie Peralta's only got a year left on his contract. You guys probably aren't going to pay him or can afford him. So we'll give you two of our young arms that are controllable and a lot cheaper, and you guys can add to your depth and, you guys aren't really that great right now anyways. You guys aren't going to win a championship. So, give us Freddie Peralta and we'll give you, a Harrison or a Wisenhunt or something of that nature. Because with a year left, Freddie Peralta is still going to have some good value. But ultimately, I don't think that's out of question at all. And, Sandy's out there from the Marlins. Now I think he's going to cost you a lot more if he pitches well this year, just because the upside's a little bit greater with Sandy. But it really just depends on how he holds up health wise. But those are two options for the Giants if they are competing. It is definitely a need as much as first bases as well, or even maybe a bench piece or two, a veteran guy that can actually hit well without getting a ton of opportunity. I think all those things are definitely on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. G-Fans since 58 says, what about Bailey batting lefty only? No more switching. Agree about Birdsling. Yeah, I mean, I think all of us would rather see Bailey only hit from the left side. Now, granted, he's not even really hitting from the left side right now, but I mean, he has been horrible from the right side for basically his entire professional career. Minus his rookie year, he shockingly hit from the right side, even though he had never hit from the right side very well in the minors. And last season, he was pretty bad from the right side. And this season, he's off to a horrible start from the right side. And it's like he has just no power from that side of the plate and really a lot of swing and miss. So I'm of the opinion that he should scrap it and just go lefty only. But, kind of to my point a minute ago, he's not exactly hitting from that side either at the moment. So it's pretty rough.
Yeah. And I know Ziggy actually asked our thoughts on Sam Huff earlier. And I'm going to continue to just say this to Giants fans because almost nobody seems to have any level of patience with the guy. He is a former top 100 prospect in all of baseball. Sam Huff is, and he has a good track record of hitting in the minors. He has 150 career pro home runs. So the guy has power. He showed that in LA against the Angels on Easter Sunday. So Huff is not a bum at the plate. It's just we've got to understand he's had virtually no at-bats this season. And when you look at his game logs, he's only playing like every 3 to 4 or even 5 days at times. So I think we do have to be more patient with Huff. He has not been atrocious defensively, in my opinion. He has a good throwing arm behind the dish. I think we got to be more patient with the guy. Ultimately, he's just a backup catcher. If you're not going to hold your starting catcher to the standard of actually being a good hitter, you cannot do the same thing with, or you can't do the opposite with your backup. If you're not expecting Bailey to even be a league average hitter, you can't expect that out of your backup who's starting 1 game a week. Like that just makes zero sense at all. Just imagine what Bailey's numbers would look like if you were only hitting, every 5th day or once a week. I mean, yeah. And they're not, I wouldn't say they're strictly giving Huff starts against left-handed pitching. It's kind of varied. They definitely have leaned that way, but it's definitely varied. It's not like him and Bailey are in a platoon, nor should they be, but
yeah. No, I agree. I mean, Huff, for the most part this season, has looked fine behind the plate. The bat hasn't gotten going much at all. Like Ricky said, he plays once or twice a week. It's kind of hard to have too high of expectations there. Until today, he looked fine behind the plate. I have zero defense for that lack of block that he put on that just piss poor effort that he put on that block. The first one that kicked away where he just threw the glove and tried to backhand it. That is just horrendous. Flip the glove over and block it with your chest. That's what Bailey does it too. Sometimes it pisses me off. I hate it. The second one, he at least flipped the glove over, but thanks to the one knee down method, his body's a little crooked. It hit him in like kind of the midsection and kicked off to the side. That one's a wild pitch. It is what it is. It happens. He at least somewhat did the correct mechanics there. You're kind of limited because of the whole one knee down thing. But the first one, I've got no excuse. I mean, that thing was right in front of him. All you had to do was drop in front of it to block it. And he tried to throw the glove. It was bad. So I prefer he doesn't put more on tape like that. Otherwise, my opinion will sour quickly on the guy behind the plate. But he also made a couple good throws today. Almost nailed a guy with a good throw to second where it was really everything he could do. And then he did get the guy at third. So a little later in the game. So I like the arm. I definitely feel better watching him than I do Tom Murphy. But, and he's young. He's 27 years old. Like he can still develop. He's a backup catcher at the end of the day. Like, let's just hope that he continues to develop a little bit up there.
I think it's a whole lot of recency bias, and we're just completely forgetting, what Austin Wynns did here, what Kurt Casale did here, what's the Mike Papierski, the legend that
Chadwick
they got for Chadwick Trump. Like, dude, these guys were atrocious hitters, guys. Like, Sam Huff is not doing anything different than those guys are doing. And we're in April, and he started all of 7 games. Like, and then, Paul actually asked, how's Stassi doing in AAA? Well, I'm glad you asked because a lot of people have been calling for Stassi instead. He is currently hitting 200 in AAA Sacramento with a 30% strikeout rate with 0 home runs and 9 RBIs, over 50 at-bats. So the answer is not in Sacramento. And yes, I know Austin Wynns, Ziggy, is doing well this year, but
he was awful here, though.
I'm talking about I'm talking about how he was in San Francisco. Yeah. And I actually told Cody when we went to the game against the Reds when he was starting that, Austin Wynns could have absolutely stayed here as a backup. There's no necessarily reason that they needed to get rid of him, but Farhan wanted to go and pay however much money it was now to Tom Murphy on a multi-year deal. So that's kind of why he's not here right now.
Yep.
He definitely wasn't the worst, but we just got to remember these guys are backups. Like, they're going to leave a lot to be desired at the plate. Now, one thing I would say is I really think Melvin with the lineups when it comes to these bench guys should really try hard to avoid hitting all of the bench guys we have all in one game, because I know he's trying to do the righty-lefty thing, but man, it is absolutely brutal when you have Christian Koss, David VR, Sam Huff, and Luis Matos in the bottom half of your lineup, just all back to back to back to back. It's just absolutely brutal. It's like, please spread out the bench guys a little bit.
Protect them a little.
Occasionally give Christian Koss an at-bat late in the game, have him fill in on defense. Like, the guy is, I think, one of the better defensive infielders on the team. Like, he's very smooth defensively. And his bat hasn't picked up. But again, he's another guy who's barely starting games. So occasionally just throw him a bone, give him an at-bat late in the game, and let him play some defense. Not to go back to Bruce Bochy, but the guy had purely defensive bench guys all throughout his tenure here. You had Matt Duffy, you had Gregor Blanco, you had Joaquin Arias. Like, you had all these guys that were just defensive bench guys, but occasionally give them, some opportunities to fill in defensively, and then they'll eventually get, an at-bat here and there. And that could be the difference in them, giving you a decent start occasionally, instead of just having all these guys be total offers every time they start. So
no, I agree. I think you pretty much said it. So, but yeah, we're gonna have to cut it though tonight, guys. Sorry, we were planning to try and keep it. We usually try and run these right around till 10 o'clock. Paul says, do you think the Giants will win a series before the short flight to San Diego? Yeah, I think they're going to win the game or win the series in Texas against Texas this week. At least I hope they do. So yeah, hopefully they do. But appreciate everyone that joined. We have like 140 of you guys here. If you do enjoy this stuff, please do hit the like button, hit the subscribe if you're not already. If you're on Instagram or X, jump on over to YouTube. It helps a ton for channel growth. We appreciate it a lot. Thanks for hanging out, everybody, today. We will definitely be live again next week. I have to look at the schedule. I don't know if it'll be, Thursday or Friday. We'll figure that out. Usually it's going to be not a day that they have a late game on the West Coast. So we'll peek at the schedule and figure out that. But yeah, minor league update will come out Tuesday. If you don't already, follow Ricky. His IG is there on his, on the page. And he posts daily highlights. A lot of the stuff you're going to see in the minor league update, he puts, up on there, including some other stuff. Lots of good Giants news, good content. So yeah, definitely drop a follow there. But other than that, appreciate you guys. Go Giants. And, we'll catch you next week.